We went through a lot of co-anchors, a lot. People had a hard time working with Mort. It was just difficult.
News 4 Detroit with Mort Krim, Kai Maxwell, Sonny Elliott with weather, and Al Ackerman with sports.
Good evening.
We tried a lady out of Washington, D.C., Kai Maxwell. It wasn't working. She was there less than a year. The standard anchor team was a white male and a black female.
Tomorrow morning. Mort?
But it was still the white male that was the dominant player in the newscast.
At the time, Warfield was the assistant news director under Snyder.
And I said to him, why don't we try Carmen? And he looked at me and he said, I just don't know. But see, Carmen was Detroit. Carmen was Detroit. Mort wasn't, so I thought that could work.
I was learning television. Remember, I started in radio first. And radio's a different, it's a different ball game. And so television requires a little more effort. I mean, you have to look a certain way, conduct yourself a certain way, and television is more performance. And so I had to absorb all of that. If they sent me out on a story, I didn't care where it was. I went out and covered it.
From downtown, Carmen Harlan, News 4 Detroit.
So she covered stories everywhere. In the streets, by dumpsters, in fields with vegetables.
And a time for asparagus.
She co-anchored some morning and weekend newscasts, doggedly earning her stripes.
I saw Carmen's ascent, and it was like the same for her as it was for me. It's like the seas parted, and here she was just trying to learn the business, do whatever they asked her, learn how to be a reporter, do some fill-in anchoring, and then people start eliminating themselves. Ben Fraser eliminated himself. He thought he was responsible for a lot of people back then when it started going well seemed to think, well, it's because of me.
And then Jennifer Moore went on maternity leave. And so they decided that, well, maybe we should have Carmen sit in with Mort.
Carmen was wonderful. Carmen could hold her own, and she was a Michigan girl. It then became a great team, and that's what was needed. But it took a while to get that.
It's all about trust. People are starting to trust Mort. They were believing what they heard Mort say. They were believing what they heard Carmen say.
Carmen made Mort work. She made it work. Now we created a team unlike any other team in town. Bonds and Diana were two separate parts. Mort and Carmen were a team, and that made the difference.
We complemented each other in ways that you can't manufacture that.
This thing has become like a soap opera. I can hardly wait to see tomorrow's edition.
I kind of humanized him a little bit, or just kind of brought him down a couple of pegs, because he was up there really high, And he had every reason to be. And what did he need most? He needed somebody who could connect him to Detroit, And I think that's kind of where I fit in.
Every market has its news queen, and Carmen Harlan became that queen for this market. Her longevity, her ebullience, her presence, and she was so professional and so polished. It wasn't like, Mort Krim and Carmen Harlan. They were equal on set and on camera, and that meant the world to a lot of folks watching TV here in Detroit.
A short time later, Zaret was made lead sports anchor over the veteran Ackerman.
But he didn't adjust to the times, just like Alan reluctantly had to fire Sonny Elliott because it was 1980 and Sonny is still writing the name of the town in chalk and putting the temperature at 72 in chalk, and the technology had moved past that. And the technology left Ackerman behind, sadly, also.
Though Washington-based Post-Newsweek was viewed as carpetbaggers or out-of-town owners, fact is, both Channels 2 and 7 were and are owned by companies based in other states.
The irony is that, yes, they started out as out-of-town owners, and WDIV was the only station still in Detroit, and they made a decision that the new building would be in Detroit. So they were going to be a Detroit station with a footprint in Detroit. So it was all a conscientious plan. We're going to be from Detroit, for Detroit, and be insiders.
Eastern Market and Mort Crim. They're both News for Detroit.
That's also why they hired Zaret and Moore, each with a strong local radio following. They also brought in others, like Roger Weber, who for 37 years covered all manner of news stories. Dan Mountney reported for 20 years, Mike Lewis for 18, both earning respect for their sharp insights and their way of telling a story. Former Detroit newspapermen like Mike Winland became an investigative force, as did Bob Pizer, another print journalist who added credibility and believability as the station steadily moved upward. By late 1985, NBC ended CBS's 6-year reign as the #1 network, and by November, the local news ratings had Mort, Carmen, and the news team edging past Bill Bonds and Channel 7, ending their decade-long chokehold on the news ratings. As the 80s progressed, new talent would flourish. They recruited NBC White House correspondent Emery King to come to Detroit, adding his expertise to local political coverage. Bernie Smilowitz took over sports when Zaret left for New York in '86.
Who, me?
In '87, Chuck Gatica, the city's most popular weatherman, came from Channel 2 to join the team. All the while, the station remained determined to keep putting local first with the parade, fireworks, and big events.
You knew that this was a company that not just cared about journalists and journalism, but they backed it up, and they wanted Detroiters to know what good journalism really was and really is. And that you felt that once you walked into the newsroom here.
And a legendary news team took them to the top.
Look at you. Look this way. This is a weatherman. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. You doing all right?
Yeah, great.
I don't know. Come on.
Not all of this is going to make it on air.
It's not going to make it.
Right. You don't think so? You'll think they edit this part out?
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Oh yes, with these four, there are stories. But that's for another time.